Welcome to Trick Your CNC Out, where we talk about the various ways you can improve upon the stock configuration of your 150 Elite. Today, get a high quality XYZ Touch block. With this piece here, I'm going to walk you through how I think about the importance of a good touch block and kind of its impact on your work. So I have here my dogs set up, which were cut by the CNC. So I know they're parallel with the axes. And I'm registered off of this corner here, this side and this side for this setup. And I'd have this clamped down. And here's the corner I'm working off of. And here's my touch block. I would zero just like normal and have it do its thing. And if you look here, I've got my measurements written down. I have 951 on the X and 985 on the Y. Okay? And that would be fine if I had that set up and all I ever did was one-sided cuts where I zeroed off of this corner. Now, let's say though that I need to do some milling on the other side as well for whatever reason. And in order to make sure things line up, when I flip it over, I have to again register off of this corner. So I'm going to flip it over, okay, and this corner is now moving from the left to the right. And now it's on the right. And again, I'm going to register off of that corner. And I'm going to take my touch block, okay? It's right now, it's in the same orientation it was. We're 951 for the X and 985 for the Y. But it doesn't fit on there now because of the way it's cut out at the bottom, right? I mean, it needs to be that way to work, but it doesn't work. So I have to rotate it 90 degrees. And now, when I do that, the 951 is on the Y and the 985 is on the X. So in order for this to work correctly and be accurate, I'm going to have to go into the master configuration and change those values. And when I'm done, and I want to go back to milling, setting up, I guess, in the normal way where I zero off my lower left corner, I'm going to have to flip those back. And if I forget to set them back, or if I forget to make the change when I flip to do the second side and zero off the right, I'm going to have cuts that are off by not 0.34 millimeters, but more like 0.42 something millimeters. And I'll walk you through that too. So the problem's actually worse than the difference between these two. So I've mocked up a little diagram here to kind of illustrate this. And you can see I have a part that is 35 millimeters tall, 155 millimeters wide. At least that's my sketch at this point. And I have that done here with the dark outline. And then I've done construction lines for another box that's offset by 0.34. That's the difference between my X and Y offsets, both in the X and the Y dimension. And you can see it's off a little bit. Now, if I measure the difference between the corners, and any points on this are going to be the same, but if I look at those corners, because it's offset in two directions, it's actually doing a little Pythagorean theorem here. It's 0.481 millimeters off versus just the 0.34. So it's actually worse than the 0.34 fairly considerably when you think about the actual practical use of things. Now let's just take a look at what that looks like in real life here. If I have a part that I have to mill from both sides for some reason, and let's say I'm going to have just a screw hole with a counter bore, and I've mocked up what a typical M5 cap screw looks like. So this is just not going to fit. Right? The threads are going to go through until the counterbore doesn't line up, and then it's just not going to work. So if you're trying to do things that are fairly precise, and that's probably part of the reason why you bought a CNC in the first place, this touch block just isn't going to do it. So what would I buy? Well, what I did buy is this guy. 360 CNC on Etsy makes this touch probe, which has 15 millimeter offsets, which is a little bit different because the default one that you get from 150 is 10 millimeter offsets for the X and Y, and 15 I believe for Z. This is 15 all the way around, so it's a little bit bigger. It comes as you know, you can buy the parts, or because the cable and the block come as separate parts. You can buy probe only if you already have the Onefinity one, because you can continue to use the Onefinity magnet and cable. That's fine. It plugs right in here with the same banana jack, no problem. Or if you didn't buy that because you saw this video before you decided to buy the Onefinity one, you could buy their cable, which uses one of these clamps rather than a battery. Same, you know, same function, but a little bit different idea. This is what I do. I'd buy one of these options myself. I already had the Onefinity, so I just bought the probe only. You do you, whatever works for you. I'm gonna go do some cuts now, both with the Onefinity and with the 360 CNC, and show you what they look like. All right, so I have done the cuts, and I'll just show first on the 360 here. It's hard to tell because the color is a little different when I cut from opposite sides, but there's no ridge here. This is smooth and feels great. That's lined up and perfect. Now, the Onefinity one, on the other hand, has a ridge on it. And you can easily see it right there. Right there's a ridge where it's off. That side is hanging over. And this is, you know, that's what you get, I guess. So that's why I'm suggesting that this touch block is a waste of money.